everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Joker Folie A Deux once more, report on the numbers for its opening weekend at the cinemas of its release, and what these numbers mean going forward. Now there could be spoilers potentially for the movie within this video, so just beware, and you can check out both my non-spoiler and spoiler reviews for the film within the channel, and I'll leave some links within the description. So we'll then talk about the movie's opening box office on the weekend, covering Friday the 4th to Monday the 7th of October 2024, and oh boy, they were not good. In the US domestic market, the film opened with approximately around 40 million, depending on what totals you go with, for the opening weekend, which okay was good enough to claim the #1 spot, but this opening paled in comparison to the first film, which was also released in October back in 2019, where it grossed over 96.2 million in its opening weekend. The numbers are brought into sharper focus when we look at recent entries within the superhero genre, such as Morbius and the Marvels, amongst the most derided movies, and the fact that Joker, astonishingly and quite shocking, opened in the same trajectory as those films is very telling in itself. We look at the international numbers, and the movie made over 81.1 million for an overall global tally of around $121 million. So after all that then, what do these numbers actually mean? Well, looking at it first from the film on an individual basis, these type of numbers would be considered actually decent. But then when you're dealing with a sequel to a first film that grossed $1 billion worldwide, then we are looking at a much more larger concern. And it is that $200 million plus budget that I still defy any justification for, that makes this opening near disastrous. And yes, I think that's a fair word to use when we were talking about this opening. Whereas I mentioned we've seen previous entries such as The Marvels, The Flash, Indiana Jones and The Dial of Destiny all come under heavy fire and criticism for their large budgets compared to their underperforming grosses. So in that regard, we do have to be consistent here and treat this sequel with the same harsh criticism. And criticism should be harsh, considering that the first film, when it was released, only had a budget of around $60 million. And I really bet Warner Brothers are looking back in hindsight now, wishing that this sequel had the same amount of cost. So we analyse further to look at the reasons for this shocking underperformance. Well, without question, the now confirmed ill-fated decision to make this a musical or instill musical elements was indeed a massive error. Anybody who's not a fan of musicals just would have been put off instantly by that choice. And any fan of the first film would have been scratching their heads with confusion as to why exactly this sequel was being a musical, which, to be honest, is normally chosen for much more brighter positive films. Why would that be applied for this film, which we all expected to be much more of a darker psychological subject matter? In terms of build-up, there was none of the controversy or perceived outrage that came from the first film, that was deemed by certain critics as dangerous, of the potential to encourage incel behaviour and violence and riots, something of which the movie came nowhere near to achieving. But that narrative created a notoriety that drew audiences to the movie, in many ways out of curiosity to see how exactly dangerous the movie really was. But this sequel had none of that curiosity going forward this time round. The hype was lessened because many people felt that the first film was indeed a one and done standalone story that didn't need any further continuation. And that leads to the fact that within the promotion, the film just couldn't establish any real compelling story to audiences. The first film had the unique spin of an origin story for Batman's most iconic villain in a story without Batman himself. Now normally that notion would seem absolutely ridiculous, but at least it did raise curiosity, and in fairness, a similar tactic has brought big commercial success for Sony's Venom movies. But what was the concept this time around? The Joker-Harley dynamic has been explored many times before, of course originally from the Batman animated series, but also in various other animated movies and also computer games. So we're seeing them together again really that exciting of a prospect, especially when we realise that these would not end up being the most iconic versions of the characters. And then of course the negative reviews and word of mouth compounded the lack of hype even more so. The fact that people were looking forward to seeing much more of a progression of this character into the classic Joker villain, and when they started to find out that that wasn't the case, they again were turned off. And yes, we could also factor in the recent disappointments, certainly within the DC brand, when we look at the likes of both Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Blue Beetle and also The Flash. Again, that would have been a contributing factor in making many people decide to keep their money in their wallets and stay at home. So overall, this underperformance is really a valuable lesson and very much a precautionary tale for studios to remember that no matter how popular the first film is, you still have to have some sort of creative insight to justify a sequel. You need to have a better understanding of what made the fans want to see this first film, or indeed what attracts them to these classic characters and IP. We only look at most recently the example of Deadpool and Wolverine, which was far from a masterpiece of course, but overall it delivered on what it promised from its marketing, and it gave fans what they wanted to see, which was basically Deadpool and Wolverine bantering together for around 2.5 hours in lots of comic book shenanigans and escapades. This was a film that delivered on its marketing promise, and Joker 2 sadly didn't. So after all of that then, all we are left with now is speculating on how much this movie will actually make overall. Well, after this opening weekend and the negative perception around it, I think it will be very lucky to get anywhere near $400 million worldwide. My initial guess when I saw the first trailers, I didn't believe that it would go on to make $1 billion, but I was still expecting anything from around $700 to $800 million worldwide for a sound financial success, but this movie is not going to get anywhere near that. We should and indeed expect a huge drop in its second weekend within the US cinemas. We're probably looking at around maybe 60 or 70%, and we will likely see similar declining drops as well within its worldwide box office. More probably we'll see a total gross similar in the ballpark of what we ended up with the likes of the Marvels and the Flash, and unfortunately that is very sad to see for comic book fans and indeed fans of the film itself, and also DC in general. And when we talk about DC, you do wonder what exactly James Gunn is thinking right now. Looking at this failure, which at the time going into this year seemed an absolutely certain success, but now that doesn't turn out to be the case. And how exactly will the failure of Joker 2 affect the perception of DC going forward? No doubt now within the next coming months we'll start to see the ramping up of promotion for James Gunn's Superman project, which is due for release in 2025. And he is definitely going to need all the luck in the world at this point to make sure that that film's a success and give any chance of his DC universe to prosper for many years to come. So that's my overall thoughts and feelings on the opening weekend box office of Joker Folie A Deux. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, drop me a suggestion within the comments and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.